why am I in these relationships with people that don't value me? Why am I not asking for what I want? I lead with control. I lead with domination. That's not true power. It's not about the garage. It's about the lack of integrity behind your word. It's saying I'm jealous. It's using my rage. It's a little sexy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Obvious. Today we have Nicola Navon, who is actually focused on relationships in the corporate space as well as personal life. And I just want to start digging in really deep. Tell us about your journey. How did you get into this? What fascinated you about this entire journey and why relationships?
Yeah. Thank you for this question, AJ. It's such a beautiful topic, and I love that we have this in common doing this work. I love relationships so much. And for me, this work started in my journey of always wanting to feel deep levels of connection with people. It started in romantic relationships, wanting to feel intimacy and not being able to cultivate it. And I had a number of unhealthy relationships. And one was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was just, wow. It caused for pause, and caused me to look at my life and say, why am I in these relationships with people that don't value me? Why am I not fully bringing myself to my relationships? Why am I not asking for what I want? Why am I not asking for what I need? Where am I self-sacrificing in partnership and in business and not fully bringing myself there and leading my life in the way I desire? And so at this time of my life, I started to work with my communication because I deeply believe in life. The key to our fulfillment lies in our ability to have an impact on others. And when we don't master our communication and understand what builds connection, what moves people, what brings people closer to us, then we can't truly have an impact. And so for me, it was empowering to work with my communication and to learn how to ask for what I want in ways that are inviting without demanding my needs. But how do I invite someone to receive them? How do I engage my team to want to rally behind me for a shared goal, a shared mission? And so now I've taken these skills of working with the communication, and an aspect also that I do in my work with both couples and leaders and in my own journey has been working with my own empowerment, my masculine, feminine energies, and bringing balance within so that I can lead more effectively. So just to give you one example, then I'll pause, is how do I communicate with assertiveness, but then bring that warmth, that openness, that curiosity that makes leaders likable.
That's absolutely amazing. Something that you were talking about, and I feel a lot of people face this, is they go through a string of failures, they go through a string of challenges, and then there's that one incident, that one thing that suddenly shifts them. Okay, something's wrong. What do you feel it is where it's like people keep going and going, they keep doing the same thing again and again until something hits them, something changes? Do you feel there's some unique aspect, that there's some unique experience, something unique about it that makes people question everything?
It's such an interesting question. I love that question. What comes for me, and I'm curious, what comes for you on that as well? What instantly comes for me is when I think about our society and our conditioning, it's so focused on the doing, the producing, and that's fueled at times by lack. I have so much I want to do in this lifetime that I need to accomplish it. We don't stop and pause on the mountaintop, like that beautiful mountain behind you, that piece of art, and we don't look at the view. What have I accomplished? What's working? What's not? Where do I need to shift? Whether it's in business, in relationship, what are my patterns? Where can I revise and be a better human being, a better leader, a better partner? And it's this focus on producing and focus on being, which is a masculine trait. We all have both masculine and feminine traits. And so we need to bring balance. And it's balancing that with the sense of yin going inwards, the feminine, the reflection. I'm going to think about my life. I'm going to think about the alignments of my life. Am I operating in integrity? And so oftentimes, to answer your question, for me, what comes, AJ, is we wait till this catastrophic moment because we're not wired naturally to want to reflect, to pause, to slow down. And the more that we do, the quicker we're going to have insights without it having to be this one major event. That's the straw that broke the camel's back for me to finally see this unhealthy pattern in my face that's been looming in the shadows this whole time.
I totally see that. People are so invested in doing, being, and I think as a society, we uphold doing a lot. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think you can be and do at the same time. And having a level of consciousness where you try to think about, does this align with me? Is this where I want to be? I think that question is very easy to forget when you're so involved in the nitty gritty, where you're so deep in the weeds and you're trying to make sure just you keep achieving. But you've been mentioning about the balance of energies. And this is something that I'm very curious to hear your perspective on. How do you view the masculine and the feminine energy?
Yeah, it's such a good question, AJ, because this topic is so high in the sky that it's nice to make it tangible for everyone listening to understand. The way that I view the masculine and the feminine energies or traits, as some may say, is we all have both. First and foremost, we're human first. So it doesn't matter. I believe we're all the same. It doesn't matter how we identify at its core, we're all the same. Now, pending our childhood, pending what phase of our life we're in, we may exercise more of one energy over the other. So, for example, if we're launching a business, we're heavy in the creation, the production, launching it out into the world, the doing, we're going to be more in our masculine energy. Someone may be more in their masculine and work more in their feminine in partnership, or vice versa. You may be more masculine in all areas. And this is why the balance is important. Now, think about the masculine as the active traits doing. So the masculine, in addition to that, it's your core. It's like roots of a tree, the groundedness in who you are, that knowing, who am I? What am I about? What am I here to do in this world? It's this conviction. It's the fuego, the fire of the solar plexus that is the masculine. Now, in relationship or in the work environment, that's you expressing yourself, expressing your needs, your desires, your boundaries. It's making things happen. In partnership, it's leading the direction of the intimacy. Let's take this trip. These are our values as partnership. Now, the feminine is the passive traits. So think of those traits as, if once I have my masculine core, my stability, my feminine can play. I can be creative. I can explore different possibilities. It's also my emotion, energy in motion. The feminine's in flow. I'm going to let my emotions move through me and express different emotions with whatever comes. I'm going inwards. I'm reflecting. In order to create in the world, I have to go in. What is it I want to create? What feels aligned? What am I good at? What needs refinement? And so the masculine's the outer expression. Now the feminine's going in. Now, how does that relate in partnership with relating? I need to go in. I need to disconnect from you, partner, to feel, ooh, it doesn't feel good when you make that comment to me in public. And now I use my masculine to voice. What I'd like is when we're out in public that we speak highly of each other because that kind of relating feels good. Now I take my masculine to express it. But if I don't go inwards to feel how I'm feeling and I avoid my feelings and going in is the feminine, I'm not going to be able to express in a clear way what it is I want. And so it's this dance. Now, the balance also comes out in communication. If I'm always really direct, I'm forward, I say what I want, I demand my needs, I'm heavier in the masculine if I don't have that balance. Now, the balance with the feminine, I'm going to ask questions. What are your thoughts on that? How does that land for you? Why don't you tell me more about your experience with this? And it's this dance between two people where we're both imparting wisdom, we're both asking questions, we're sharing. And that's what makes a relationship fun. That's what makes a conversation fun.
From what I'm hearing, it seems like the way I'm understanding it is it seems like the masculine is it's like you're doing and then you review. You do and you review. It's almost you can't just keep doing and just go in the wrong direction. And you need to review so that you make sure that it's in alignment with what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's the right understanding or did I miss something there?
By the way, if you want the tools that will help you with imbalances in your marriage, I've created a free guide that you can grab from the link below.
I love that so much. Yes, AJ, that lands for me because it's review, exactly. Review, reflect. It's the intuition. The feminine's also that sensitivity. That review is the same thing. I'm sensitive. I'm reading a room. I'm feeling you, partner. I notice that you're not making eye contact. Maybe something's going on. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're not feeling well. Maybe you're down. It's noticing the subtleties, which is review, reflection, however we want to put it, but it's that comes from the intuition, that comes from the knowing, and that knowing informs the masculine traits of doing, saying, expressing, naming what we see. And they work hand in hand and it goes in a circle continuously.
Got it. This entire topic is very interesting to me, and I have been in conversations with this topic, and there have been times I have noticed that the word masculine feminine actually seems to confuse people. That, oh, why is it named masculine feminine if both are able to do it? Is it important to think of it in that framework? How have you felt about that? Because I've had neutral thoughts about it. I can see both sides where it could be that maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe it's certain societal aspects that has created that and it's just a naming convention, but it doesn't need to restrict anyone. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, this is such a good question. I'm writing a book on this. My first book is on this topic. And
Oh wow.
yeah, I love this question because you're really teasing out depth here. And so it's interesting because as a society, we're moving towards a more fluid approach to gender. Now, the way that I speak about intimacy, it's also fluid. It's not about women in this role of feminine, men in this role of masculine. It's fluid. Now, it's interesting because I use these terms, masculine and feminine, to give a framework to understand certain traits. And I do it because at this point of our world, many people still understand, they still use this framework of the masculine and feminine. And I feel that we're not yet at the place as a society where everyone truly understands the bigger picture. And so it's this interesting challenge, even for me as a teacher on this topic, of how I break these concepts down. Because I don't have to technically use the terms, right? It could be just speaking to more directive traits versus softer receiving traits
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
balance, but so many people are conditioned to understand it
yeah.
that way. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
It's really interesting because even when we need to teach someone, often we have to go down to the space where they can relate to it and then use that to actually create new understanding, which is such a dichotomy, honestly, because you want to create this new perception, but at the same time you have to use the old perception to get there.
Ooh, I love that so much, AJ. You're also articulating as well something I've been simmering on, and I love the way you articulate it and speak to it because it's so true. It's like meeting people where they're at and speaking in terms that, yeah, people understand. And over time, then we rewire this concept because, yeah, I truly believe we are all the same. We all have both energies. And my larger mission in the world is to heal the gender divide because I believe, the parts of us that we judge, even the distorted masculine parts, this has been my healing journey that I've judged of domination and aggression. I have that in me. Yeah, the parts that don't want anyone relying on me, that doesn't want anyone dependent on me. And we all have these parts. And then when we stop blaming, oh, the masculine doesn't understand me, the feminine doesn't understand me, and we actually heal these inner wounds within, heal how we relate to our own masculine and feminine, and thus the masculine and feminine at large, and the early caregivers in our life, then we look at everyone as people. And then instead, we start to understand, what do people need to feel seen? To feel loved, to feel heard. And then it's these other dynamics that come. I'm going to have deeper emotional intelligence of validating my partner, of seeing them, of not trying to fix them, of resonating with them through story and how I share my own experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in the corporate world, how do you see this playing out, especially where people may find these terms more taboo, where they're not sure how to work with these terms? How has your experience been trying to bring this aspect into the corporate world?
Yeah. So it's an interesting topic. It's an edgier topic. And how I navigate it is not every company is, I don't always use the terms masculine and feminine traits. Sometimes it's speaking to more active versus passive traits. But when it comes down to it, it's teaching leaders and teams how to balance these dynamics of assertiveness with also curiosity to get everyone on board, of maintaining that warmth, because many leaders can be powerful, but they're not likable. Many leaders can be likable, but they self-sacrifice. They don't truly have the impact that they desire. And so it's learning through different communication tools how to balance. So, for example, how to move people emotionally. This is why I love communication. Learning the art of storytelling, of visioning. People don't rally behind a leader, they rally behind a movement. What's the mission? What's the value behind it? What are you actually doing that's going to impact the organization? You think about the best companies in the world, Apple, they weren't like, buy our products because we make amazing tech products. No, we're part of a movement, technology shaping the world and how we bridge humanity through technology, deepen connection.
Yeah.
And so it's speaking to those deeper elements, whether it's inspiring passion in your partner, whether it's inspiring passion in the workplace. It's the same thing. It's knowing these levers to pull and understanding human behavior in order to effectively move them, because no longer are the days, or it's shifting, where we operate with control. I lead with control. I lead with domination. That's not true power. And it's using the more subtle aspects to have an impact.
Yeah. Do you think people are able to understand now that influence is power, or there is power in influence rather. Influence is not necessarily power, but there is power in influence rather than power in control. I know you've worked with so many people for years now. What has been your feeling around how people are navigating around this?
People are coming around. It takes time. It depends who I'm working with. But of course, and I look at it like we are conditioned as a society to think power comes from control. So it takes a long time to reprogram that. But at the end of the day, leaders feel it when their teams aren't motivated, when their teams aren't aligned, when it's a challenge to get stakeholders to all work together in harmony and everyone's eye focused on their own piece of the pie and their own incentives and goals, and the company suffers as a result. And so it's really it takes learning and it takes a lot of falling to understand that. But at the core, no one feels good when they don't feel liked and they don't feel like they have an influence. It takes a toll on us because our ability to impact people impacts our fulfillment, and it actually impacts our health as well. The Harvard study of adult development has done a study on that. And when we have strong, healthy relationships, we're healthier in our lives.
I was learning more about some of the work you're doing, and a signature method that you spoke about was the union method. Would love to understand what it actually entails, and I think there are three pillars to it, so would love to just go
Yeah.
into a little bit of depth with it.
Yeah, thank you for asking, AJ. So, my union method is all around coming into greater empowerment within self so that we lead better in love, in life, in all areas of life, in love and leadership in life. It has three pillars. The first is this idea of balance. Because here's why. When we're off balance, think of a scale. What happens? It tips. When we're not in balance, our relationships are not in balance. It's an uneven give and take. It's unequal power dynamics. When we're not in balance, that's where burnout happens in the workplace. We're so busy in the doing, we're not focused in the being that we're exhausted, we burn out. Or we lack direction. We have no direction. We have no agency, and we're constantly blowing in the wind, reacting to things and responding with no conviction and clear path. So when we're balanced, we have balance in our relationships and we have balance in our life because we have range. So I'm able to know when I need structure, my masculine, when I need structure, when I need direction, when I need goals, when I need to hold myself. I know when a moment needs thoughtfulness, intuition. I'm attuned to the sensitivities. I know how to bring some lightness, some play, some humor when the moment calls for it, which is a feminine trait. So you have this mix. And this is why balance is so essential also in partnership, in all areas of our relationship, because it's how do I lead the direction of the intimacy? How do I receive? How do I know how to give and take this beautiful combination? So balance is the first pillar. The second one is communication. This is working with the voice because now once we feel balanced, then we can layer on, I'm going to work with how I communicate. I'm going to learn how our nonviolent communication tools. I'm going to learn how to keep people open. I'm going to learn how to invite conflict in a way where someone is not on the defense. I'm going to learn how to express myself in a way where someone can see me and understand me. Vulnerability. There's so many angles with communication. It's also nonverbals, my tone, my body language, where I pause, where I inflect. All this stuff makes a difference. And then the last piece is polarity. This is a complicated one. I'm going to try to make it really tangible and simple. I love polarity. Polarity is all about understanding energetics of magnetism. Whether you're a leader whether you're a lover. If you want to draw people into your orbit, it's understanding how to do that. And so I teach feeling into the energetics of a room, the energetics of a dynamic, and understanding the subtle push and pull and what is required to invite someone to lean in and continue to lean in towards you. Because when we do this in the workplace, it's filled with passion. People are enthused. They're excited. That passion doesn't wane. When we have it in partnership, we are continuously creating dynamics where the passion is fueled. And you can create polarity in many different ways. But it's an essential part of my work because I want to feel alive in my relationships. And polarity creates that aliveness. It's what fuels desire. It's what fuels passion. And I love to have that feeling in all of my relationships. I want my friendships, my friends leaning in. I want my friends excited when I reach out. I want my friends thinking about me all the time. What's Nicola doing? What are her thoughts on this, right? And it's what allows us to deepen in intimacy.
Yeah, it creates a magnetism within you which can build a different level of fulfillment,
Yes.
right? Uh,
Yes.
when people think about polarity, the immediate thing that comes to your mind is you're using an opposing energy to what's on the other side. So, for example, if there's positive on that side, I'm using negative, so that there is attraction, right? When we think about it, whether in terms of relationships or in terms of corporate leadership, how does this play out? So when they're trying to create the magnetism, does it mean that they have to use a different energy to create that attraction, create that magnetism?
Such a good question because we're making it tangible, AJ. I love that. Yeah, it comes from it's this inner polarity first. I have to have it within, so I have to be balanced in my masculine and feminine energies. And then, yes, it's this opposing energy. So, for example, let's start with a partnership example. If it's heavy, if we're in conflict and it's heavy, how do I lighten it? Polarity is created through contrast. How do I bring lightness to now bring in that, fan those flames a little bit, bring in that excitement? Because polarity can be created through conflict too, and it's how we alchemize it. How do I bring lightness in? If we have a beautiful moment of intimacy and it's deep, sometimes intimacy can feel too heavy. Let's make it real simple. I'm going to go to the bathroom and take a pause. I'm going to go to the kitchen. I'm going to go in another room to let it land for someone so then they can feel those, ooh, yeah, I want more of that. But we need the distance. We need the space to then want to deepen again. In business, it's also bringing that opposing energy. So someone who's magnetic, it's not someone who's in a room who's directing everyone with a real intense voice, telling everyone what they need to do, what the next milestones are and steps, but it's someone who maybe is, let's say, assertive in that way, but then maybe they subtle. I'm going to pause. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to creates a little bit of tension in the room when you pause. And then maybe you ask a question. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just pause. But it's creating contrast in dynamics, in relational dynamics, and in how you show up that you're creating polarity constantly. And it's through that, the last thing I say that comes, I love that I'm excited speaking about this topic, is it's through that contrast where people are drawn to you because they don't know what to expect. You keep them on your toes. You can be sweet one moment and wild the next. You could be a lover one moment and fiery the next. And because you have that range within, this is why you have to also be balanced. You're this walking polarity that it's a riddle people don't understand. And that is intriguing. That's exciting. It's boring when you know someone and they're fitting the same role every day. And so it brings in that sense of novelty, spark.
This is amazing because what I've often seen, people tend to try and be in the same plane because it's comfortable. They try and be the same person. So they don't want to shift around because it's so comfortable. You don't want to put yourself out there. You don't want to show this opposing form because judgment. There's so much possibility. There's lack of safety in who you're going to be when you're trying to shift these energies around. And that feel like is the big challenge where people face, okay, I don't know how to process this. And what ends up happening is they create boredom. They create this lack of variety. It's constant. So there is often love, but the polarity just goes away. It seems like that's my understanding from what we're speaking about. How would someone know that they are out of balance? How would someone know that they are just using one energy and something needs to shift?
Oh, it's such a good question. For me, what comes, AJ, and for those of you listening, if you feel like you're constricted, if you're not fully expressing everything it is that you want to say, to do, if you feel like you have to show up in the same ways, kind of minimized in this sort of box, if you will, it's a sign that we're not fully being expressed and we're not fully using the range that is within us. I used to repress my anger for many reasons from my childhood. I didn't access my anger. Now, not to say everyone needs to go around using anger in relationship, because that's an emotion that we need to learn how to clear. But when I didn't let myself actually know how to feel it in my own room, alone, know how to clear it and alchemize it, because these darker emotions can actually bring polarity. Because then I can use my anger, I can use my jealousy, I can use my rage to the Kali energy to maybe bring a little bit of desire, bring a little bit of fire. Ooh, she was talking to you at the party, and that made me a little jealous. I don't think that she knows that you're married to Kali. I don't think she wants to see that. Right now, that's a little playful. It's a little fun. It's saying I'm jealous. It's using my rage, but it's kind of cool. It's a little sexy. Yeah. And then how do we take that, our darker energies and use them for creativity, or even our depression, or our sadness or our grief, and alchemize that, whether it's creating art from it, whether it's writing a poetry, whether it's, babe, I feel like I'm Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic, and I can't get through to you and I can't connect with you, and all I want is, for you to come into my world and be here, maybe in the beginning parts of Titanic and before they were madly in love. And so how do we play and use the play to speak to how we're feeling in fun, humorous ways? And that also creates the polarity.
So, if someone finds themselves just stuck and they feel like they're very restricted in the way they can be, that is a sign for them to try and explore if there are other energies to use.
Yes, good question or comment. Maybe you're still going. I'm going to pause.
No, no, I actually wanted to see if I had to summarize it this way, did it make sense?
So this is a good point. But I'm realizing as you're repeating it back to and mirroring, it's not fully tangible. So an easy way to do that, and I will say that this is something I teach. I just launched a course called the Communication Codes, and it's a self-led online course, and this is a big part of it. An easy way is first, it's just playing with tone, playing with the nonverbals. And that's why I say it, because I walk you through each element, but it's giving yourself permission to play with the range of your voice, where you inflect, where you pause, your tone, how you stand. Now, the more that we start here and just giving self permission to explore different ways of speaking, of using voice and nonverbals, that will then open the door, because it's challenging to use humor and play and tap into the darker emotions if we don't first work with the easier stuff, the tone of voice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. This has been very insightful. Switching gears a little bit,
Yeah.
I wanted to ga- uh, I wanted to get some insight into what are certain mistakes people do when they are communicating with their partners. What do they do wrong?
That's such a good question, because there's so many angles I can go here. The immediate thing that just came into my mind when you said that is, this is something I notice all the time in my work, is people don't realize the underlying dynamics of a conversation. A mentor of mine, his name is David Zeta. When I first started getting into this work years ago, he always told this story that's never left me. And he says, and apply this, I'm speaking from the feminine perspective because this story was about a feminine being, but we apply this in many ways. He said, if your woman is mad at you for not cleaning the garage when you said you'd clean the garage, it's not about the garage. It's about the lack of integrity behind your word. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the biggest mistakes we make in the heat of trigger, I didn't say that, and this is how it went down, and no, you did this. But instead, it's pausing, slowing down, and feeling like, ooh, what's the deeper pain beneath what they're saying? Maybe what's the fear beneath how they're showing up? Why are they behaving this way? And when we don't pause, I'll frame it as a positive. When we pause, we can actually get to the root of the disconnect and the tension so much quicker.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it. Actually, my wife and me, we have this phrase called "it's never about the tea." If we are fighting about something, and it can seem trivial. Why are we fighting about? Why are we arguing about this little thing? It could be like a phone. Why are we arguing about it? And it has always been the case that there is something deeper within it. There is something else hidden underneath that we are not paying attention to. And it only comes up as we pause, as you said, as we reflect on to what does this really mean to me? Why is it so important that this is done a certain way? Or what does this mean to me? And that's what really comes up to me, because I feel people don't realize this. They really think it's about that thing when it's not.
Yeah. It's so, I love it so much because, yeah, it's so funny because couples will always come into the work and they'll bring this one topic that they want to work through, and it's never about the topic. It's always like, oh, wait, when she's speaking, you're looking away. When he's speaking, you're interrupting.
Right.
Yeah, and like, what is there? What's the anxiety beneath that behavior? So I love that. It's never about the tea. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Thank you. If someone had to start improving their communication, right, other than the tonality or the voice textures, those aspects, what is a simple tool they can start off with that they can use in their relationship or in their marriage right now?
Yes, such a good question, AJ. Vulnerability. Speaking vulnerably and speaking to what you're sensing and feeling. And I'll give an example. But when I say vulnerability and what you're sensing and feeling, I mean speaking to the behavior, how you're feeling inside and the behaviors, not assigning judgment. So for example, instead of you're in a mood, that hurt me, I'm annoyed by you, you make me sad, you make me angry. Instead, it's I'm noticing we're not making eye contact. I'm noticing I'm trying to talk to you about something and you keep interrupting and asking me about the errands. I notice every time I bring up a conflict that you walk into the other room or you tell me it's not a good time. And it's the more that we speak to the behaviors, it's going to put the person less on the defense, because then it's not about them. It's about the dynamics we're noticing. And then the vulnerability piece is also speaking. If you have nothing to say, if you don't have an answer, or if something hurts you, it's just like this didn't feel good to receive. When you made that comment, it didn't feel good to receive. Maybe it's in the work environment. I'm noticing that I feel some sort of tension in this group dynamic, tension between us. Maybe you're speaking to someone. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't fully articulate it yet, but I feel it. And I want to name it. And I'll come back to you when I have more insight about it.
Yeah. Being honest about what you're processing. That this is, in this moment, this is what's coming up to me. Even though it may seem ridiculous or crazy to you, this is what I'm going through. And I think also creating that space for someone to be able to do that, I think that plays an equally important role, without which I think there's no safety in the relationships that you have.
That's such a good point, AJ. And I love that. It's also creating exactly that space for somebody else, creating that psychological safety for them to also express themselves without being judged for their human experience and how they interpret things. Because whenever we judge, we invalidate. And if we feel something, we feel it. It's there.
Yeah. So as we kind of head towards the end of this conversation that we have had, which has been amazing, I have one question for you to kind of come to the end of this conversation. What are three beliefs or three principles that you have noticed are extremely important, but most people find it ridiculous?
Ooh, in communication or in my own life? Or give me more. Give me more
Either
so I
way.
can. Ooh, that's interesting. That's good. For me, what one that comes, I'm going on personal here. When I was younger, I didn't honor my sensitivity. And so I avoided it. And our sensitivity, and so people in my life, because they weren't deeply sensitive beings, they couldn't understand it. And so I rejected that part of me and I judged and shamed that part of me. Now, all of our biggest wounds can be our biggest gifts. This is something I feel many people don't understand. If we know how to use them properly and alchemize. So, for example, I became hypersensitive. I can be hypersensitive in an unhealthy way where everything's wounding me. I'm sourcing my validation externally, or we use it as a gift. I'm attuned. I feel. I listen. And so, where am I going with this? If someone doesn't like an aspect of you, don't take that for truth. Feel in for your own truth as to how can you use this aspect in a way that feels good for you and feels empowering for you. And what's the gift in it? Because we live in a polarity world, so our greatest wounds can be our greatest gifts when we know how to spin it glass half full. We know how to use it and have the learnings through which to take that and empower our lives. I mean, that was one. That was such a powerful one. I'm like, I don't even, if I were to say, for the other things, I think the two others, I would say give tools of what I think would be really powerful for relating is to think about, always come from resonance, storytelling. People don't really value the power of story. So, for example, someone in my life just lost their job. I could tell them what to do. Go on these job boards, do this, don't stress, this is what you should do. No, that's not going to work. They're going to close down. They're not going to want to share. So instead, I share about when I had lost a job. And if you can't relate, if you're like, this person's sharing something and I can't relate, find the common ground. Maybe it's a big transition you made, a pivot that you made, a time that you were in the unknown and how you navigated it mentally, what you did to set yourself up for success, and how you work through that process. And it's through storytelling that you're going to give them insights to think differently, but it feels less direct as I'm telling you what to do. And the key is, how do we storytell without attaching to the outcome or expectation of how they
Right.
respond to it?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was amazing. I think it's so true that so many times actually people don't want to be told what to do. They don't want, especially if they are in certain spaces, they're like, just leave me alone. But if you come up with, here's what happened in my experience, sometimes there's a lot of opportunity to find common ground and to calm their fears or to calm their anxiety about what they're going through in that situation. So, yes, thank you. If you have one more, that would be great. But otherwise, no pressure.
Yeah, I'll give one more here. I'm going to go on the theme of humor and see if we can make it more tangible. Humor, it's the most underrated skill. Now, people often think that humor takes away the seriousness of a conflict. It does not. I am not talking about using humor to illuminate conflict the entire time, but I want us to think about humor as I'm creating an opening for a deeper conversation. So, for
Right.
example, if I'm walking into the bathroom and let's say my partner just took a shower and there's water all over the floor and it's a mess, what comes for me? Instantly, my mind goes to, I'm a sailor in a ship. The ship's about to sink. We're in the middle of a torrential downpour. And, then it's like, hey, like, wow, I feel like I'm in the middle of the Atlantic and the ship is about to sink. There's water all over the floor. What is happening in there?
Right.
Now, that's subtle, but it's pointed. That says, hey, babe, it's a
Uh-huh.
mess in the bathroom. But it's my energy stays fun and playful. That's more inviting. And it's a different energy than I'm not going to go into mothering mode or fathering mode. And
Yeah.
what's going on? Why is it a mess on the floor?
Right.
And so when we use humor to illuminate dynamics, it has tremendous power to invite in deeper conversation, to get
Yeah.
folks to reflect, and even in intimacy too, to lighten the intimacy, especially for avoidant energies who may
Yeah.
close when the intimacy feels heavy.
I definitely see what you're saying. Is, in fact, something that really comes up to my mind is I have a friend, and like this guy has the knack of being able to find these exact moments when everything's so serious, and it's going to be one quip, and it changes the energy of the moment. It goes from serious to okay, it's all fine. And humor has this power of just comforting people, just saying, "Oh, everything's okay. It's not all serious. It's not a life or death situation. It's okay." So, absolutely. Thank you for that.
I love that so much, AJ, because we're here to also play, to
Yeah.
live, to play, to love, to grow. And we sometimes forget that element of the play in life, the hilarity of life, the silly situations that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we end this conversation, would you like to give any details about your upcoming book for the audience so that they can be more intrigued and wait for it?
Oh, you're so thoughtful, AJ. I'm still in the earlier, I'm, s- I'm still in the earlier phases, but I will say, stay tuned in the next year or two.
Awesome.
It's a labor of love for me, and it's such a deep topic all around bridging the masculine and feminine, bridging the gender divide. And I really want to do it justice. And for me, thinking of the balance of my masculine and feminine, it's this dance of when I birth something out into the world, am I letting it marinate? Am I really, really sitting with it and nurturing it and letting the ideas percolate? And so, even though we're very close to complete, it's still any day I'm like, oh, wow, this whole area needs to be restructured. So, we'll say the next couple of years. But if you want to stay connected, stay close to me in the work, or, if anything comes up from this episode and you want to ask any questions or share, and of course, leave a review for this amazing podcast and for AJ for bringing this medicine to the world of relationships and relating and intimacy and connection and beyond the obvious, because so much is beneath the surface. And this is, of course, how we honor and energetically exchange the beautiful platforms that are provided for us to share. So I want to just thank you so much also, AJ, for being an amazing host and for having me. And yeah,
Absolutely.
shoot me a message on Instagram, for any of you
Absolutely. Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. Guys, this conversation has been so actually insightful for me as well, because I got to learn so much with regards to energy, how things play out, and beyond the scope of so many things I have learned so far. So this was an incredible conversation. Thank you for giving us your time. And guys, if you want to connect with her, please check out the show notes with her Instagram link and her Facebook link so that you guys can learn more from her. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you want to fix your marital imbalances even faster, click the link below to access the free guide that I mentioned earlier.